Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society bringing you our nightly update. And we've got a lot of things to talk about. We currently have a hurricane warning in effect for all of the Azores, with Gabrielle potentially threatening Portugal. We also have the development of 93L into Humberto this afternoon. So we now have two name systems, and then we also still have the uncertainty associated with 94L. We have Narda out here in the Eastern Pacific currently as a hurricane. So let's get right to it because we've got a lot to discuss here tonight. So, as we take a look here at the main page of the National Hurricane Center, we will note that 93L is now Tropical Storm Humberto here. This is forecast, folks, in Bermuda. Keep a very close watch on this particular system. 94L is the one that is the threat to more populated areas, so to say. Currently, Invest 94L has a 30% chance of development over the next 48 hours and an 80% chance of development over the next 7 days, somewhere in this red hatched area. Where potential development, if development occurs, would be critical. If it is a little bit further to the west, obviously that would put a lot of the East Coast into a little bit more of a threat. Plus, obviously, it would be developing right in the middle of the Bahamas. If it is a little bit further to the east and a little bit closer to Humberto, then there are all sorts of uncertainties that could occur. But one thing that may occur now that we've got Humberto developed prior to Invest 94L, although it does look quite pretty here this evening. As you can see, this is Invest 94L just south of Puerto Rico here. So I've been basically trying to keep an eye on this thing all day long. I am starting to notice a little bit of rotation in these clouds up here, kind of coming back this general direction. We still have a flow coming up here. We don't see much on this way. I mean, you could tell that the trough is here because the winds come up and then bend in this way. So we do have an area of rotation that is trying to develop right there just south of Puerto Rico. And that is quite evident here on satellite with development, convective development all around that little area of circulation. So we will definitely have to keep a very close watch here on 94L. The flooding threat for the rainfall, regardless of development, is definitely going to be here for our friends in Puerto Rico and all throughout Hispaniola. As this wave continues to propagate to the west, west northwest, whatever direction it's going to propagate, at this point it is almost imminent that it is going to have some type of land interaction with higher peaks, whether it be Puerto Rico or the extremely high peak out here on Hispaniola. Okay, so let's get into the particulars for Gabrielle. Gabrielle currently, right now, has the biggest threat. It has hurricane warnings currently in effect. So right now, Gabrielle is located at 36.0 north, 45.2 degrees west. It is approximately 1,010 miles west of the Azores with a maximum sustained winds of 100 miles an hour. It is currently moving east at 28 miles an hour with a minimum central pressure of 970 millibars. There is currently a hurricane warning in effect for all of the Azores. If we scroll down here to the most important part of a public advisory, the hazards affecting land, wind, Hurricane conditions are expected in the Azores Thursday night into early Friday, with tropical storm conditions likely Thursday evening. Significant hurricane force wind gusts are likely across portions of the Azores even after the center passes. Storm surge. A dangerous storm surge is expected to produce significant coastal flooding in areas of onshore winds in the Azores. The surge will be accompanied by large and destructive waves. We do not have a measured value on storm surge. The rainfall. From Thursday into Friday morning, Gabrielle may bring 3 to 5 inches or 75 to 125 millimeters of rainfall across the central and western Azores. During the same time, outer bands from Gabrielle may also result in 1 to 2 inches or 25 to 50 millimeters of rain across the eastern Azores. And then, of course, we have the swells generated by Gabrielle. And then that is also going to be reinforced by Humberto. So if anybody plans on going out to the beach this upcoming weekend, please, please, please exercise caution and check with your local officials regarding the conditions there at the beach. So we do not need anybody getting caught in rip currents. If we take a look at our experimental cone and interactive graphic, we do have very, very blatant and widespread hurricane warnings throughout the entirety of the Azores, as you can see with the hurricane basically barreling right through the center. After it gets through the Azores and it turns post-tropical and it makes its extratropical transition, we could then see a decaying storm moving into portions of Portugal. The last time that they were hit by any tropical system was Tropical Storm Alpha, and that was back in 2020. So this doesn't happen very often at all. So we're definitely going to have to keep a very close watch on this even after the National Hurricane Center stops issuing advisories on it. And as we can see here with the spaghetti plots, pretty much dead center of the Azores here, everybody's in pretty good agreement. There is some disagreement as we get out here getting closer towards Portugal. So there is some uncertainty there as to where it may curve before it reaches the coast. But a lot of the models do bring it into for a potential landfall. And you're talking about the potential of tropical storm force winds making it all the way to Europe on the National Hurricane Center graphic. Yeah, welcome to September. Now, if we take a look at our most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds, sometime through the day on Thursday. So our earliest reasonable arrival time is going to be around Thursday at 2 p.m. Most likely arrival time will be maybe 6 p.m. So it would be recommended to have all preparations completed before 2 p.m. on Thursday, please. This way you are ensured that you have all of your preparations completed before tropical storm force winds arrive. If we take a look at our chance of 50 knot or 58 mile an hour wind speeds, these are those damaging wind speeds, widespread power outages, and as you can see here, we are looking at anywhere between 60 to 80% here on these main populated central islands. We do have some increasing percentages on these 50 knot winds getting down here into the other parts of the islands here. I'm sure folks might not be able to see that. So we have one grouping here, another grouping there, and another grouping there. So obviously, this center one is going to take the brunt. The question is, do we get those similar winds down here into this one? That's the question. Because if they don't lose power outage, if they don't have extensive power outages on this northern island here, they may be able to offer some assistance over to the other islands after Gabrielle passes. That's the hope. If we look at the tropical storm force wind speed, though, they're going to have to deal with some type of impacts. As you could see, that northern eastern grouped island here, that is definitely well within the tropical storm force wind field. And as you can see here for our central islands, you're 90% plus. So big time impacts that are coming for the folks here in the Azores. Please rush preparations to completion. The overall discussion, we're not going to read all of this tonight, but the third paragraph is extremely important to inform everybody about. As Gabrielle moves over cooler waters within a highly sheared environment, the hurricane is expected to gradually lose tropical characteristics while interacting with an upper level trough. The GFS and Euro suggest the resulting warm seclusion low structure could lead to the formation of a sting jet feature, with a band of hurricane force winds wrapping around the backside of the system around the time it moves over the Azores. Since the global models tend to handle these situations well, the NHC forecast closely follows the GFS and Euro guidance during this part of the forecast. A hurricane warning remains in effect for the Azores, and portions of the islands are likely to experience significant wind and storm surge impacts. Gabrielle should complete its extratropical transition in 36 to 48 hours, and afterwards, more significant weakening is forecast as the post-tropical low becomes vertically stacked and fills over the eastern Atlantic. This sting jet here, this could lead to gusts getting anywhere to the 90 to potentially 100 miles an hour on the backside of this storm. And as you can see here, we are looking at potentially 90, 85 mile an hour sustained winds. It would not be surprising to see if this sting jet does develop. It would not be surprising at all to see 100 mile an hour gusts. Not one bit. So folks, especially there in the central Azores, really need to rush hurricane impact preparations to completion as quickly as possible, please. Looking at the intensity models. Now, if we look at the intensity here, that's even the wrong graphic. Hold on one second. If you want a really good, like I said, I've been stalking 94L all day long when I've had the opportunities. Let's see, we'll go here to Gabrielle, and we will scroll down, and I didn't think that these were the actual intensities, but I guess they are right now. This is sad, because this is the 0Z, and I don't think so. Give me 1 second. Let's check. Yeah. That's a little better. This is the 18Z. That particular one over there on Cyclonic WX, this one's broken. Yep, that one's broken. But if we look here, we've got for our intensity model to where some of it keeps it still well within the hurricane, but there's a couple of them that do it rather slowly. Some of them weaken it rather quickly for the majority of it, but there are a few that want to weaken it a little bit slower. And all that's going to do is just increase the potential there for some significant impacts to the folks there in the Azores. So please, I can't stress this enough. Please make sure that you rush your preparations to completion as soon as possible. All right, now we are going to shift over to Humberto. This one is formally Invest 93L. This has now become our next named tropical storm. It is currently located at 20.1 north, 54.9 west, about 550 miles east northeast of the northern Leeward Islands. Maximum sustained winds of 40 miles an hour, currently moving west northwest, iffy, at 15 miles an hour, with the minimum central pressure of 1,008 millibars. There are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect, and there are no current hazards affecting land. If we look at the interactive cone with this, as you can see, very slow motion going through about Saturday and then starting to pick up a little bit of speed. This is in response to an approaching trough off of the east coast and the erosion of a high pressure off to its east and northeast. Because this developed first today, this may have impacts and influence because it's going to be stronger on 94L. There is a great deal of uncertainty, especially when we get into this time frame up here. When we get into this region here, that is the big question. What's going to be here? If anything at all. Because 94L still has to deal with Hispaniola. Lots of questions, folks. A lot. This one, though, right now, the biggest threat to this would be Bermuda. I don't see a scenario to where we've got the other one here, this one here, we'll say, and we'll actually put the other one maybe somewhere in here, and where they would do a Fujihari, or however you say it, rotation, and sling this one back to the north. That trough is going to be in the way. So if you see that out there, I'm not necessarily expecting that. What would happen is Humberto itself would get captured, rotate, and escape out to the northeast, with potentially dragging whatever 94L is back to the east and then pulling it out with it. It's all types of uncertainty with this one. It's been quite interesting to watch, but it's like being stalked by a tortoise. That's what we're looking at right now, especially if you sit there and you watch the satellite. It only changes about every few minutes. So like I said, it's like being stalked by a tortoise, because you see it coming potentially, and it's that many days away, and it's like, all right, do something. You poke it with the stick, do something, and it just doesn't work. So what we have here, I'm not going to read all of this here tonight, but I do want to read the first sentence of the second paragraph. The system is estimated to be moving west-northwest at 300 degrees at 13 knots, but this is of low confidence since the center has only recently formed. A west-northwest to northwest motion is anticipated through the next several days along the southwestern periphery of a mid-latitude ridge. Now, we might as well just go ahead and read this, because I know everybody's going to want to know as much as possible on these two systems. Towards the end of the forecast period, an approaching trough moving offshore the east coast of the United States will erode the ridge and allow the system to turn more northward. However, there is quite a bit of uncertainty with this forward speed and cross-track spread of the system. This is increasingly apparent beyond day 3, as there are some complex steering components with the timing differences in the global models. including the approaching trough and the potential binary interaction with Invest 94L. The NHC track forecast lies near the consensus aids, given some of these uncertainties, and there is lower than normal confidence in the track forecast. So please, folks, you must check back. Information and data is guaranteed to change. The storm is within a favorable environment for strengthening with warm sea surface temperatures near 29 degrees Celsius and a moist mid-level relative humidity values. The system will be dealing with some moderate westerly wind shear for the next day or so that will likely cause an asymmetric storm structure, meaning it will be tilted with height. The Euro and GFS ships guidance depict the shear slightly weakening in the day 2 to 4 time frame, and with increasing divergence aloft, a slightly greater rate of strengthening is shown at that time. The latest NHC forecast follows these trends and lies near the consensus intensity aids. Now keep in mind that there is lower than normal confidence in the track, but the intensity looks to be pretty good on this. And as you can see, when we get through day 3, we've got an 80 mile an hour category 1 hurricane, but then here at 92, or 96, not 92, we immediately jump up to a 25 mile an hour increase there between day 3 and day 4. We sort of level off from day 4 to day 5, but this little spot right here is going to have to be monitored, because if we have decent conditions, upper level divergence, and we get an inner core closed off on that hurricane, this might be a conservative number. So we really need to, folks in Bermuda, please keep a watch on this. I know you already had, one close call potential with Aaron and some impacts. I know you just had Gabrielle go by. Here comes another one potentially. And this one could pack a punch. If we look at the most reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds, we are looking sometime after and maybe around lunch on Sunday, maybe around noon, though the most likely arrival time of winds would be overnight on Sunday. So please, it is recommended, folks here in Bermuda, be prepared to finalize preparations for the potential of an impacting system by Sunday, by sunset on Sunday. Now, things may change to where you don't have any threat, but just keep in mind that you may have to make those hurricane preparations and put in place your hurricane plan sometime on Sunday. So please keep that in mind. Our tropical storm force wind speed probabilities right now for our friends here in Bermuda, you're running probably pretty close to that 20%. You're right on that 20 to 30% line and the 10 to 20% line. So you're going to be right in there, upper teens, right at about 20% for your tropical storm force wind speed probabilities. Please keep in mind that this is the first advisory, and we've already seen that the motion, movement, and track is uncertain. So we do have to wait for more data. We do have, let me go back to the recon. We did have recon out there earlier. And so it flew all of the drop zone missions on the north side of the island and left everything to the south of Puerto Rico alone. So while that may not be ideal, but that's at least 494, and that information will help to kind of determine whether or not we get a binary interaction in place going down the road. as you can see here with the, like they said, with the cross track spread, we're going to pop this over to the east coast of the United States and eliminate the Caribbean. There goes Gabby. All right, here comes Humberto, but look, we've got this wide swath of where could it go. Is it going to kind of drift up this way and then come out like that? Or is it going to drift a little bit more to the left? Now, that's an unknown feature, and I promise Bermuda is underneath all of this conglomerate mess, and it has got a lot of intensities to this, folks. A lot of big time intensities. So Bermuda could be looking at the approach, excuse me, the approach of a major hurricane. If we look at the Euro ensembles going out 7 days, yes, we have a few of these that are basically all over the place with 94L. You've got some that come out this way, some that go that way, some that go that way, some that go this way, some that kind of do this kind of number. It is just a complete mess. So right now, the thing about 94L, no way to tell. Too early, too much land interaction, and if Humberto gets quite a bit stronger compared to what we have with Invest 94L, it could just absorb it. Now, if we compare the Euro legacy with the GEFS, that's pretty much what the GEFS is showing. To where, yeah, we could get a little something. You get a couple ensemble members that run this way. You get two that basically run it up towards U.S. interest. But you get this large signal down here, but then there's nothing that comes off of it. To where you may get a little area of low pressure that tries to develop, but as Humberto gets out and comes this way and closes the distance, this would basically just get ushered over there and caught up with Humberto. More or less like a little juice of, like a boost. So, unfortunately, Bermuda is right underneath all of this stuff with Humberto. That's the only thing that is bothering me really about this particular storm, is that it is a potential threat to populated areas. Otherwise than that, I would be all out. Go Humberto. Just let it rip, because you potentially take away the threat for the United States interest and the Bahamas by drawing that out. If we compare it all with the AI models, now if we remember what we looked at yesterday, as you can see here with the 7 days, we had a lot of, drive it to the left, up to the north. If we look at how things have evolved through the overnight hours with the AI, look there. The signal jumped all over the place and then popped back. But look what happened when it popped back this time. It has the majority of the tracks headed in that general direction. Now, like we just showed with the models, going from run to run to run, there has not been a consistent signal from run to run to run. So, therefore, we have to see this particular setup occur a little bit more than just one run. And with the AI, we'll see. There is a few that take it like this, but the majority take it out and follow Humberto. That would be key. I mean, we really, I don't want to see any of these storms impact anybody, but unfortunately, with the Google DeepMind definitely doesn't agree. Because before I even run this forward, Bermuda is right here. And granted, we may not see the direct impact, but We're talking about some pretty intense wind speeds here on approach. And depending on how strong this thing gets, it's going to take that much more time for it to get weak. So if it, like with Gabrielle, perfect example. We saw this go from basically nothing to 140-mile-an-hour Category 4 storm. Well, because it got so strong, it's taken a lot longer to weaken. Therefore, instead of, minimal tropical storm force winds and maybe watches and warnings for the Azores, now we're dealing with a hurricane. So the real question is, what becomes of this system here in this particular. Well, I did not mean to do that. I meant to do this. It's this part right here that kind of concerns me, because that's where all of these intensities really start to turn colors, where we get the wind speeds to go. And I'm going to turn on the Euro just so you can see that as well, as far as the wind speeds with the Euro. The Euro has it coming out a little bit further to the left. I mean, some of them are absolutely insane. As you can see here, with this one outlier being a Cat 5, and then if we come up here, this one's a Cat 4 on the outliers. So, I mean, there's all different types of intensities that are all throughout the ensembles. And if we turn back on with the deep mind, though, they're in pretty decent agreement saying, hey, this pink right here, this little area, represents major hurricane force winds. Now, I know what the National Hurricane Center is saying, but I'm just relaying what the data is showing us from these models. Nothing more. The National Hurricane Center forecast is going to be the one that we would look at for the official forecast for sure, because they look at all this stuff and then add their expertise on top. Now, I've got this out 5 days. Now, as you can see with the Google DeepMind, this is much further to the left than some of the other models that we've seen that have it maybe a little bit further to the east. Not by a lot, but a little bit. Now, when I go ahead and I highlight these boxes tonight, the Google DeepMind is in real, really aggressive in wanting to take this out like this. We barely have anything. But the question is if you get something, say, right here, all right, and you're dealing with, we'll look at our orange, and our orange is going to be our Category 1 system. We'll run it up here like this. We're looking at Cat 1, Cat 2 in our orange system. The question then becomes, with that approaching trough and the air that is rotating around this system, with an approaching trough coming in like this, where do those two air masses meet? Where do they collide? Because if they collide over land, you're going to have a ton of rain. Now, if it's out here and it wants to rotate around, there's a very good chance that that rain would be offshore here somewhere. You've got the trough that'll also be running air in like this. So everything's going to want to try to race this way. But the question is, where does this low level and this trough, where does that meet? Because that could cause a lot of rain. That really could. Now, we're going to run through real quick here our deterministic models. This is going to show, this is our 12Z runs. So this was initiated this morning. This does not have Humberto on the screen. All right, you don't have that information right now. This information, like I said, was initialized this morning, became available later this afternoon, and it's the freshest stuff that we've got to go on. So we've got the euro on the left, the GFS on the right. This is our 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity. This represents our areas of spin approximately 1 mile above the ocean surface. As we run this forward, we will see that in about 72 hours, the euro has a signal here for 94L. Both of the GFS and the euro have Humberto. We're there. Gabrielle's out. The big question is what is going to occur here with 94. So at 72 hours, the GFS does not have this hardly at anything at all. If you look there, it has interacted with Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. So it cannot really get a comprehensive surface circulation developed. That leaves it elongated. That leaves it as a trough at this point. That leaves it weak to the influence from Humberto. The euro, on the other hand, does not have that same signature. The euro has a little bit of energy there into the south central portions of the Bahamas. That is critical. Why? Because as we roll this forward, that little bit of energy, here we get to day 5, allows it to then consolidate into a closed low system and begin in what would become Imelda at that time. They are both pretty close to one another. Now, the GFS does not have a coherent system with 94L. As you could see here, it is a broad area of circulation with obvious, where Humberto is. So we're going to run this forward and watch what happens by the time that we get to day 7. There is a huge change. First off, let's talk about the GFS. Where's wave 2? Where's 94L? It got absorbed. It is completely absorbed into Humberto and exit stage right. No threat to land, other than unfortunate Bermuda, which is right there. The euro, on the other hand, allowed this to develop. Now, we've already got the solution for the GFS, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to explain the euro because I've seen a lot of people talk about what happens with the Fujihari effect and could the storms kind of merge and become one. Not if they're the same or have some kind of similar strength. Now, obviously, here on the euro, we do not have a storm of similar strength, but what we do is have two decently, bona fide low pressures. The GFS, on the other hand, does not. It is just a broad circulation, and all of that energy gets kind of drawn up on the inflow of Humberto. But watch what the euro does. So here we are, day 5. Now, if you look, Imelda really doesn't move over those 12 hours, as you can see there, though Humberto does. Now, it is right here at this point to where when they meet up for their binary interaction, you can see how you've got kind of this line right here that rotates and goes all the way around both systems, right? So it is going to want to rotate around a common center point. But when they go to interact, the moment that this is not going to sling around like this because this is too weak. This is going to come up and escape out the back door, and then this, because of said weakness and because this storm has a little bit of vertical alignment and depth, is going to follow it. So you see that little bit of counterclockwise rotation with Imelda, and then whoop, there it goes. The only problem is that the trough that was creating the weakness in the ridges of the high pressure is way up here. All right, it's way up there off the screen. You know, like your low is way up here. This one is getting out. This one, on second thought, is maybe wanting to stay around. So that's what our seed shows. And then a high pressure building in over portions of the northeast and then slowly moving to the east as this high pressure. It starts out here and now it is moving this way, and this storm unfortunately has to go around it. Now, that's a ton of uncertainty. As you can see with the GFS said, I don't think so. We're just going to eat that 94L up with Humberto, and it will not be much of a threat to anybody at all. So that's what our vorticity shows. Let's take a look at what our humidity shows. What we have here on our upper graphics are the 500 millibar level, or approximately 3.5 miles above the ocean surface. On the bottom, we have our 700 millibar level, which is approximately 2 miles above the ocean surface. So what we are looking for here, with our browns representing dry air and our greens and blues representing our moist air, is areas of the moisture that would be associated with the tropical areas of interest, and the associated dry air that is obviously to the north of both of our systems or areas of interest right now. You have Humberto here, and you have Invest 94L there. We'll match it up with the euro here at the 500 millibar level. Now, as we can see very clearly, there is a ton of dry air over the northern portions of Humberto. All right, so now we're going to run this forward in time, and we're going to bring this through, run it forward, bring it into about 72 hours. As you can see, the euro has a lot of dry air wrapping into Humberto. The GFS, it has some, but nothing like what we see here on the euro. If we run this forward a little bit more, now when we get out to day 5, at this point we do know that we have 2 seeds developed, 2 name systems here on the euro, and that we only have 1 big monstrosity here on the GFS, as Humberto has absorbed our 94L. So as we continue to roll this forward, we can see though that on both models, the one thing that they do agree upon here, there is a sharp line of very dry air coming in with this low. A very sharp line. But if we look at a little bit into the lower levels, the thing that I have a question on, and I mentioned it earlier, is this moisture band right here and the collision of that air mass right there. Something could potentially rotate around and create a pocket and an area of heavier than normal rainfall over a specific region, because of the fact that those storms are there creating that lift and that moisture pocket. So as we continue to run this forward, as you can see, all of that dry air though, regardless what happens, gets sucked way down well south of Florida, maybe even getting into Cuba on both of these runs. So if it if it does develop like the Euro is calling for, you're going to drop a lot of dry air much further south than what we have seen so far this season. The GFS is a little bit different, but it does inject quite a bit of dry air down here over portions of the southwestern Atlantic, getting down into a part of the Western Caribbean as well. That would be helpful as we continue to go forward through the month, or the latter part here of September, and especially getting into the month of October. What we have here now is our deep layer wind shear graphics. We've got the Euro on the left, the GFS on the right. This is 200 to 850 millibars levels. So this is approximately 5,000 to 40,000 feet, and how the winds blow and change with height and everything. Now, right off the initialization of this, we've got to point out that there is a great amount of shear just north of Puerto Rico, as you could see here. This is why that we've seen with the path of least resistance with this area of convection developing south of Puerto Rico today. You could see the cloud tops being sheared off up here to the north of the island. If you look down south, you do not see that same effect. And honestly, this runs quite a few hours, and this storm really hasn't moved very much at all over the last, I'd say, 6 hours or so. It really hasn't moved much at all. None, practically. So there's definitely some concern there, and it just increases uncertainty, of course, because that's what we all need in the month of September, is a storm that is just like a big question mark on it. This is like the Riddler. So if we look at that shear vector over the northern portion of the islands, the Euro lifts that out earlier, as you could see here. We'll get it to maybe about 30 hours. You could see this is where they start to really diverge. You've got the shear component still to the north of the islands right here, with the development of Humberto right there. Right, you've got the wave pocket associated with 94L located right here. As for the Euro, the shear has shifted up much further because Humberto is over here. And that leaves this little area getting into this pocket right here a little freer of shear. And it gives it a little bit better of an environment after it creeps off of Hispaniola and gets out here into the area of the southwestern Atlantic to then be able to consolidate. So the shear component is one of the big differences between the GFS and the Euro. Now, as we continue to run this forward, we're going to get this out to day 5. You can very clearly see that if a storm is there, you have one storm here, one storm there. We'll put the circle here. We'll put the circle there. This one is 956 millibars. This one's only 1,000 millibars. So it's not like it's any kind of like big time hurricane. But as you could see, we have a lot of that shear here. So we may see a lopsided system, but if something can get around, that's when we're going to have a problem. Because all of this moisture that's going to be running up, that could lead to some significant rainfall amounts. Potentially. We need a storm there for it to occur. If we look at the GFS, like folks over here, you're not getting hardly anything as far as the tropics are concerned. If the GFS materializes, no, we're not going to see those potentially big rains. If the euro, on the other hand, maybe. And I will show you exactly what I mean by that through our NOAA blend of models and our Weather Prediction Center's overall forecast. If I run this forward, look what happens. Look at the rainfall totals here for the Carolinas. And then watch what happens just offshore. We've got it to day 7, and as you can see, we've got a wide spread of 3.5, maybe 4+ inches up here from the Weather Prediction Center. 3+ locally higher amounts here into central parts of North Carolina, and it even goes up into Virginia as well. So this is kind of what I was speaking about as far as maybe the rainfall, depending on exactly what happens, we could see increased rain. And if we do get a cutoff low and some of the earlier solutions that we've seen, these rainfall totals would be subject to change. All right. Now, does anybody have any questions? Let's see. All right. I hope everything turns out okay there, James. I know the situation, so our hearts go out to you there, brother, you and the family. Our nightly update with the MJO, the GEFS is bringing this back more towards a phase 2 component. That would be more over the African mainland. Could offer a little bit of assistance over there into the tropical Atlantic a little bit, but this is not sitting over like the Eastern Pacific, Gulf, Western Caribbean area, at least, thankfully. Fingers crossed. We don't want none of that. Real quick with Earth Null, as you can see, we do have I'll bring this up to the 700 millibar level, and you can clearly see where our area of rotation and spin are for 94L and for Humberto themselves, with that shear component being there also. And what looks to be a little bit of an upper level divergence on the southern side of the islands, getting there into parts of the Caribbean. So all eyes on 94L tonight, just to make sure that this thing does not get haywire on us. So our Atlantic season is beginning to wind down. We are starting to approach the October, as we can see here. This is approximate, but we still got a ways to go. Please do not let your guard down, folks. We've still got a few more weeks of potential. As you can see here with the Global Tropics Hazards Outlook, this just came out yesterday. We do not have a Central American gyre feature for the first week like was forecast last week. But for week 3, we do see the return of a potential Central American gyre signal. So, again, until that is completely gone, season is not over, folks. Please remain weather aware as we continue through the upcoming weeks. And hopefully the threat from 94L never materializes, and we can maybe kind of just brush by Bermuda with a glancing blow, nothing direct, no major impacts. All right, jumping out into, yes, Sean from YouTube asked, yes, Humberto did form today. It formed at the 5 p.m. Eastern advisory, so just approximately a little under 2 hours ago. 40 mile an hour sustained winds with the potential for it to become a hurricane in the next 72 hours. All right. Jumping out here again to the Eastern Pacific, we have our hurricane now. We have Hurricane Narda. And this is not forecast to be any kind of a threat to land. It is currently located at 15.1 north, 112.3 west. about 560 miles south-southwest of the southern tip of the Baja Peninsula. Maximum sustained winds 100 miles an hour, currently moving west at 10 miles an hour with a minimum central pressure of 976 millibars. There are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect, though the hazards affecting land, you could see the potential of some high swells and life-threatening surf. So please be cautious of the water. If we look at the forecast track, coming out, turning up, again, getting north of 20, and have a nice day. That's pretty much that. As far as reading out the entirety of the discussion here tonight, absolutely not. There is no need on that. The one thing that we will highlight, though, is that we are looking at a little bit of a weakening trend here over the next 24 hours or so, then hold steady, then re-intensify, and then decide that it wants to get a little bit too close, as you can see here, 18.2 at 100 miles an hour, and then 20.1, 65. You got too close, and have a nice day. As you can see here, 22 degrees north, and it's post-tropical at that time. So again, it's gonna pull up, it's gonna roll out to the west. We'll come back here and just what's gonna happen with this. It's gonna roll out like this with its vertical alignment and its intensity. It's gonna turn up, it's gonna weaken, and then it's gonna lose all of its convective activity, become a naked little swirl, and then go that way. So, it's another storm. It's an ace maker out there in the Eastern Pacific. No real threat. If we take a look at our ensembles, we've got this pushed out 10 days. As you can see, no real threat to land. Maybe not much of a signal on the back end from our Euro legacy. If we take a look at the Euro AI, a little bit more of a signal on something maybe potentially behind NARDA, but otherwise than that, no real imminent threat to land. And with the GEFS out 7 days, we'll push it out 10 days, as you can see here. Again, maybe a small little signal on something on the backside of it, but no threat to land. Although we may, this particular signal here, this here may represent a little bit of, changing of the environment out here in and around the Central American region. And as you can see, we're getting out towards the 4th of October once we push this out 10 days. And this could be, maybe, the starting signals of some type of Central American gyre. Although, please keep in mind that the American models, the GEFS, and especially the GFS, are going to start ripping ghost storms at hours, 380 or 384. You could get a 350, a 320, a 280. As long as it's outside of that 7-day range with the GFS coming from the Central or the Western Caribbean and potentially from the Central American gyre, immediately dismiss it unless the Euro says, absolutely, I agree with you, GFS. All right, last but not least, we are going to jump out here into parts of the Western Pacific. Ragasa, finally. Final warning issued on that earlier this morning. Did make landfall again. Josh Morganman has got some wonderful video there from southern China. Hope he had a wonderful and welcoming experience. I have seen to where there was 14 fatalities here in Taiwan from Ragasa. I have not heard about, I've heard rumors about fatalities that have occurred here into China. No official. I have not heard of a single fatality that has occurred in the area of the islands there north of the Philippines to where Ragasa made landfall as a Category 5 system. And that in my opinion, would be absolutely amazing. I'm just waiting on confirmation for it. Now, if you guys give me a second, I have, I looked up the pronunciation um, earlier here on this storm. And I will get back to that question that I saw there on Facebook as well in just a second, sir. I want to make sure that I pronounce this right because I did, um, I do have this here. And it is Booyaloy. Booyaloy. That's how you pronounce this. It is currently on approach to the Philippines. It has wind warnings issued, although we have no longer expecting typhoon impacts, although there is going to be a great amount of rain here into the central portions of the Philippines, and then potentially passing over or quite close to Manila, who experienced quite a bit of flooding from Ragasa, this whole western side of Luzon, and getting down here into the island south of that I am not aware of the name of, but they got pounded by backside inflow, and they ended up with a lot of flooding. Now we've got another storm coming in on its heels. That's a problem. And as we could see here, it is forecast to become a typhoon at some point as it moves towards either the Hainan Peninsula or getting into areas of Vietnam. Not like they need another one. And this was what the final warning was here on Ragasa. Wanted to make sure that we do show it. As you could see, Hong Kong took an absolute beating. There is a viral video of the storm surge wave in a hotel lobby that just blows out the entire windows, frame, structure, everything. A gentleman with the second wave ends up getting swept off his feet, and they've got some serious problems and impact. And as you could see how far with this red circle that the tropical storm force winds extend all up into southern China. This has been a majorly impactful storm and is known as the quote unquote king of storms by the Chinese people. It's that bad. And I don't know what happened there, so we will get rid of that. And if we look, again, it's microwave imagery. You look at that double eye wall feature, and that just extended the wind field and made this an absolute monstrous disaster. So, our hearts go out to all those infected and impacted by this. I don't care where you live. All right, now let me get back to the question here into Facebook. Give me just 1 second. All right. Yes, Jacob. Let me get over here to our rainfall graphic, and we will knock this out here. Oops, that's not what we want. And we will come to the Mid-Atlantic, pull up our total precipitation. We will pull the model blend, and then we are going to pull the Weather Prediction Center 7-day official forecast for comparison to see if there's any differences, that the models may be showing something different than what the WPC is. And also we could take the model blend out 10 days compared to the WPC at 7 days. As we run this forward, it's not going to let me take it out 10 days on the model blend. For some reason, the mouse does not work. It's either one or the other on these two graphics. It's glitchy. But as we can see here, 72 hours, the 72-hour mark, you could really start to see some of that rainfall increase. And though the NOAA blend of models really, like the WPC, it's not, doesn't look like it's all at once, but as you can see here, we're looking at you know, widespread, definitely widespread 2 inches. The thing that kind of concerns me is this area here along the mountain range right here. We certainly have higher totals on the southern side than we do on the northern side. But at that same time, do we have any sudden extra rainfall that just comes down too quick, too fast, especially for folks here into western North Carolina? And then it is really this zone. I don't know how well you can see this. Let me change colors here real quick. From the WPC, it is kind of this zone right here. And as you can see, the model blend is in somewhat agreement there. But then there's another bullseye back here. So just a little bit of a concern. I mean, they're not catastrophic, flooding totals. We're not talking about massive rainfall totals. My concern is just that too quick, too fast, and it really doesn't have the opportunity to drain. And knowing how vulnerable some of the areas up there, especially there in Western Carolina, where they do not have, the same structure, root structure, and abilities to absorb water that they once had prior to Helene, I always take extra precaution. I mean, I spent an hour and a half on a call this afternoon with a nonprofit organization that has one of their main members there located in Central North Carolina, and just to say, not to sound any alarms, but just saying, hey, if A, B, and C were to occur, then you may need to activate some uh-oh moments. Like just be prepared to prepare to act for the uh-oh moments. So it was basically the call, like I like to say, raising the yellow flag. We don't have an orange flag right now, and we certainly don't have a red flag. But it's just one of those ones saying, hey, all right, I see enough that we may need to just pay a little extra attention to this. And, let's see what the reconnaissance gets. Let's see what that does for the models. Let's go through, have some patience, and await for this to kind of do whatever it is that it wants to do. It not moving over the last 6 hours, nobody had that on its bingo card as far as the models are concerned. So again, a great amount of uncertainty, and it's all really unfolding right before our eyes, and it's kind of taking a form of now casting in some way. I do not think that the center, if there is some type of surface feature trying to develop, I do not believe that it is underneath that convective mass. I believe if there is anything that were there near the center, it's going to be off to the north and maybe even to the northwest of this convective mass down here, because that shear is still up here and quite strong. So it is, and you could tell by some of the feathering of the clouds here in the last few frames that some of that shear looks to be increasing over the system as well. It is not able to rotate around. Let's change colors, because there is one particular thunderstorm that'll show it all. Watch this thunderstorm that comes off this coast right here. Watch what happens. It comes off, it blows up, it gets completely sheared out. It tries to rotate down, but there's nothing left. It's gone. It's completely shredded. So there is a great amount of shear right here, you can tell. And the shear values are increasing. Earlier it wasn't so bad, but you could see that feathering of these upper level clouds starting to grow in length. And that's definitely a telltale sign of increasing shear. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly how this unfolds. All right, everybody. I am eastern side of Virginia by the water. Yeah, okay. Jacob, like I do these lives every single night. We'll be live every night until Halloween at 6 p.m. Eastern. Please feel free to join us back if you do have any point in time. I'll definitely pull up some marine data and get you a little bit of wave height information and stuff like that. We're definitely here to help. I am a little pressed for time here this evening, or I'd pull that up right now. But unfortunately, I have to go get my wife from work, and I'm already quite a few minutes running late tonight. But she understood. We've already had that agreement that I may run late, but not try to make it too overly late because sitting there by yourself kind of sucks. So if you join back tomorrow night, I will definitely pull up the marine data and try to get what kind of information is available at that time for you. I've got it all available on my phone. I'll just transfer it over to the computer. So, all right, everybody. I thank y'all for joining us. I am going to go ahead and sign off here tonight. We will be back live here on Facebook and YouTube tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. If the threat level to land really dramatically increases between some, say, just all of a sudden in the overnight hours, we get up and we see that the models are completely different, we will immediately increase our live frequency. And we will start going live multiple times during the day to cover the advisories as they are, the primary advisories, as they come out from the National Hurricane Center, to keep everybody updated and informed on the latest information. So I thank y'all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow night. Good night.